Hi, Adriana. So it's nice to hear from you. I know it's been a while since you've written us any essays. So I'm really happy to see that you have begun again. That's great. This is Ellen. Um, okay, let's take a look at this. It's a stacked bar chart regarding car sales. So let's see what you said here. The bar graph reveals the sales of 3 different car brands, Ford, Audi, and BMW, in 9 European countries. Okay, great. Usually we call it a bar chart. Just keep that in mind because we call them line graphs. But then if it's got a pie or a bar, then we call it a chart. Okay? So it is clear from the chart that, or I guess here you could call it graph, but just be safe and call it a chart. It is clear from the chart that Hungary was the country with the largest number of cars sold, accounting for 400,000, followed by France with approximately 300,000 sold. UK, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland showed an average figure of 200,000. Careful with your zeros, while Italy was just over 100,000. Finally, Belgium showed the smallest figure with sales under 100,000. Okay, fine. In terms of brands, Ford and BMW demonstrated similar sales of 100,000, okay, on average. Ultimately, Audi's sales quantify less than 100,000, particularly in Belgium where hardly any cars were sold. Okay. Let's see. Overall, amongst the 8 regions, 8? Isn't it 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9. I don't know why you said 8. Okay. So overall, among the regions, Hungary was where more cars were sold, whereas Belgium was a country where fewer, well, it should be the fewest cars were sold. In addition, Ford and BMW showed similar figures, while Audi's sales were the lowest of the 3 brands. Okay. Let me tell you what I liked, and let me tell you what I wanted a little more detail on. So I liked this. I liked this. Here, I felt like these 2 paragraphs needed a little bit of work. Let me tell you why. I absolutely agree with the way you organized your answer. So you had 1 paragraph for those total numbers, and then you had another paragraph for the individual car sales, the brands. And I think that was absolutely perfect, a great way to do it. What I kind of felt like here is that it was a little mechanical, okay? So it was just very kind of repetitive. That's what I mean. It just like the way a machine kind of tells you numbers. Hungary, 400,000. Italy, 300. Germany, 200. So you want to be careful with that. What could you have done here? And I'll tell you, okay. So yes to what you did for Hungary. And even okay with France. But then I personally, okay, there's not obviously one way to do this. I would have gone with Belgium. And I probably would have gone with Hungary. So I would have talked about Hungary, France. Did I say Hungary again? I meant Italy. So, sorry, one last time. Hungary, France, and then Belgium and Italy. Okay, so you've got the top 2 and the bottom 2. And then I would have lumped the rest of them together, saying that they all sold between 200 and 270,000 cars. Okay, so this makes it a little less mechanical. And to give you an idea what that sentence or what those sentences would sound like, I would say it is clear from the graph that Hungary was a country that sold the largest number of cars at 400,000, followed by France, so exactly what you did. In contrast, Belgium sold the least at under 100,000, and Italy had the second fewest car sales at approximately 120,000. The remaining countries, and you don't have to name them because you've already done that, all sold between 200 and 270,000 cars. Then, here is where I felt like you needed to do a little more. Okay, so you can see what I'm saying here. I'm suggesting talk about the two highs, the two lows, and then lump the rest of them together. And then here, spend a little more time, a little, not a ton, but a little more time giving some detail. So I agree with what you did. You said that Ford and BMW demonstrated similar sales on average. And that's true to some extent. I agree that BMW definitely sold around 100, give or take. But you didn't talk about BMW in Belgium, okay? And I think that's a really interesting figure. Let's see. So in terms of brands, Ford and BMW demonstrated, so it's past tense, similar sales of 100,000 cars on average. And then, you know what? I don't really want to lump Ford in this. Because you can say that that's pretty true for BMW, but I think Ford's figures are a little different. I mean, Ford had these two highs, okay, so it was high in Hungary and high in Holland. And then you could talk about its lows in Germany and Italy, okay? And then maybe you can, again, just kind of smush the rest of them together, okay? But I don't think that the pattern that you pointed out is quite as clear. At least it's not to me. So maybe you could have done something like that. And then with Audi, what did you say about Audi? Let me just double check your figures here. What did you say to us? Audi's sales were the lowest of the three brands. Yeah, I mean, maybe there could have been an extra sentence about that. So Audi performed well in Hungary, but had negligible sales in Belgium. Something like that. Just a little more, a little extra piece of information. So yeah, it's essentially what I'm thinking here. I just kind of felt like there could have been some sort of information about Audi. Let's see what else. Okay, so yeah, I just did a word count. This is 163 words, and that makes sense to me now. Because let me see, does this count as 2 words? Let me just double check. Yeah, check it out. It does. So this is actually a little what's the word I want? Misleading, because this is actually supposed to be 1 word. So it's not even 163 words. It's actually fewer than that. As you probably know, there is no minimum word count. Everything about like 150 words, that doesn't apply anymore. But it now makes sense to me why I felt like you needed more information, because I felt like you talked too much about this, about like details, about like the numbers just being kind of mechanical, and then there wasn't enough in this. So now that I took a look at your word count, that kind of confirms for me my initial suspicion. Okay, so that's my feedback about that. Not much else to say. Grammatically, it was fine. Lexically, it was okay. There really wasn't a lot to work on here. It was pretty standard fare. Nothing that really stood out in terms of vocabulary, so that's something to think about as well. I'm looking forward to seeing another task from you in task 1 to see if maybe you can use some of this this task 1 vocabulary that is so important for IELTS. All right, we spent a lot of time on that, so I really want to go straight into your task 2 about pollution in large cities, the reasons and solutions for it. Okay. Nowadays, pollution issues have significantly worsened, especially in urban areas. This essay will discuss the main causes of pollution in main cities, including, you don't need a comma there, road transport emissions and pollutants used for electricity generation. This essay will also suggest solutions to these problems, like limiting the number of cars and the usage of sustainable green energies. All right, that's lovely. I like that. Currently, pollution problems in metropolitan areas mostly derive from the extremely harmful gases emitted by vehicles and the ever-increasing demand for electricity supply. Road traffic emissions from petrol and diesel engines constantly increase the level of dangerous gases in the air. In addition, power plants generate electricity for industrial and private consumption, but also release detrimental gases. Several hazardous gases pollute the environment, such as carbon monoxide and nitrogen dioxide. Undoubtedly, these emissions have contributed to the urban environmental catastrophe. Okay, that's very good. I like that. Lovely. Nice vocabulary, good linkage. That was well done. Two solutions that might stop the contamination in major cities would be restricting the number of vehicles and adopting green energy supplies. Policies like increasing petrol tax, improving public transport, and setting up traffic-free zones in city centers could be the starting point for decreasing pollution levels. Moreover, electricity suppliers should be encouraged to use renewable energy sources. These companies can be incentivized by, for example, a generous reduction in their tax bills. As soon as the authorities introduce these measures, the air quality will importantly improve. I don't really care for that as a collocation. It doesn't really feel particularly natural. How about will significantly improve? That's much better. And as a result, air pollution will return to safer levels. Okay, so one of the things that I'm really enjoying about this essay is that it reads really nicely. It flows, it's got a good grasp of some natural language for the most part, and I thought, in general, it's well constructed. Here, I kind of feel like you're running into a problem, and believe me, this is a super common problem in these problem solution essays. What I kind of feel like you have done here is your paragraph on the solutions really reads like a list. So it's just like, 1, 2, 3, 4, one after another, what the solutions are. But there's no real analysis or no development of how or why these are solutions. Okay? And so if you don't have that development, if you don't have support for these things that you're suggesting, then it doesn't really feel like a well-developed paragraph. So take a look. What are the two solutions? You're saying restricting the number of vehicles and green energy. Then you start talking about petrol tax, public transport, traffic-free zones, renewable energy sources, incentives for taxes. But there's not really much as to what these would do, how they would do it. And that's what's missing for me. Okay? So, for example, when you say policies like increasing petrol tax would be effective because people would be less tempted to take their car to work, and in turn, they would take public transportation, thus reducing emissions into the atmosphere. So this is what I mean. Okay? You need to explain to your reader why your solution is a solution and not just, hey, look at all these solutions that I have. Okay? But like I said, this is super common. I see tons of students to do this. And you know what? They especially do it with the solutions. They don't do it so much with the problems, but it always is an issue with the solutions paragraph. So, okay, let's take a look at your conclusion now. To conclude, at present, urban pollution has reached dangerous levels. This essay discussed how these levels have been reached by the massive number of motor vehicles on the roadways and the growing urge to generate more and more electricity for citizens and industries. This essay also suggested that the solutions to this problem are twofold: reduce the number of automobiles on the streets and stimulate the use of renewable energies. Okay. That's fine. It's not what I typically suggest for a conclusion because it really, really is like a rehashing of your main points here. And to some extent that's okay, but you also have to do a little more to make it an appropriate conclusion. So, this whole thing like this essay did this essay did that. I think this could have been rephrased, and I think you would have been really nice is if you could have given your reader like a thought-provoking idea or a statement with some sort of prediction for the future. That would be more effective. So if you'll allow me to make a couple of suggestions as to how to fix this, let me see if I can come up with something. At present, urban population has reached dangerous levels due to the massive number of motor vehicles on the roadways and the increased need for electricity. It is predicted that at the current rate of development, these problems will increasingly grow in the future. Or it is predicted that without the application of the aforementioned solutions, these problems will continue to grow significantly. Okay, so that for me would have been a better way of doing this. Okay, and that's something you can try applying to your essays. Overall, I thought you did a nice job with these. Okay, so go ahead and correct them. Let's see some more new essays from you. I hope that we can see your continuation in the course a little more frequently because I know it's been at least a couple of months since we've gotten an essay from you. So hopefully we'll see work from you. Hopefully you'll have some time available for that. I'm looking forward to it. So good luck, and I'll be waiting for your next essays.